Hello yogis, thank you for joining me in this Yin Yoga practice today. Now we are going to be working with the stomach and the spleen energy. Such a wonderful energy to work with during the kind of colder time of the year, so the wintry months, or if you're feeling a little bit stagnant in your body. Now we're going to want to have either a pillow, a bolster, a blanket, or any extra things that you want for comfort. You don't necessarily need lots of props, but you will need something to elevate the hips, and maybe something to keep warm with at the end, as we will be doing a short meditation as well. So we're going to start our practice on our mats in Hero's Pose, and I look forward to seeing you there in just a moment. So making your way into what we would classify as Hero's position. Now, sitting on your ankles, on your feet, stretching out the ankles. This may be quite challenging for some of us. So if you find this particularly painful and like, oh my gosh, on your knees or the feet too intensely, you can always take the weight up a little bit because that still might be a stretch for the ankles. You can also take a bit of padding for the knees and intensify the stretch in the ankles but come off the knee joints. If you find the knee joint closed is too intense, and come up onto something higher so that you can stretch out the ankles still, giving you a little bit more of an opening, but without having to sit into the feet. Or if you want even more of a stretch, obviously sit back onto the feet with the knees on top of a bolster or a book or anything that gives you extra bit of height. Stretching out the ankles feels wonderful, and we're stretching into the stomach and the spleen energy lines here, running up kind of the outside front edge and the inside. So we're going to sit here and breathe into the feelings going up through the legs, taking a moment to simply just arrive into our bodies straight away. And we really want to explore the physical body and all its wonderful ways of experiencing sensation. Now, what I love about a yin practice is quite often we feel that sense of worry. It's like, oh my God, I can't do this. Oh my God, it's painful. And that taps straight into the stomach and the spleen energy. Now, we do not have to be perfectly balanced with these energies in our body. Sometimes we actually feel a little bit kind of like, oh, this is a bit uncomfortable. I need to take a slightly more gentle route because I'm stressed. So if you start to feel stress in your system at any point, ease off a little bit and come back to where you feel you can manage the sensation. We're here for about another 30 seconds. I love ankle stretching, but then you know I love pretty much everything, right? In yoga, a client said to me yesterday, must feel really nice to like love so much of your job. And I was like, yeah, I guess it is. True that. So taking another couple of breaths, we're almost through this little bit of a stretch. And then as we slowly, if we've got the bolster underneath the knees, release, you can come onto your hands and knees and circle into your ankles, releasing the ankle joints. Maybe tap the feet down. And then start just to move through a few little wiggles of the hips, a little cat-cowing. Starting to just feel the body beginning to open up. Notice where you automatically feel tension, where you might need a little bit of nourishment in the body. Good. Now we're going to come into our low lunge, our dragon. So if you want to have the bolster here, that's really nice for support. Now I'm going to give you a couple of options so you can deepen or support this position. So you may want a blanket underneath the knees if you find, I'm working on quite a solid hard floor, and even the mat doesn't always feel that comfortable in terms of padding. So a blanket is really nice. Now we're going to stretch out the right side first, meaning the left leg wants to lunge forward. Now this is more of a dragon kind of straight position rather than working into your lizard, which is a little bit more wider. So we're coming straight down into our dragon, and we're feeling the stretch into the hip flexors, the front of the thigh. Now this is quite a nice position here, or if you want a little bit more, you can always bring the knee onto the bolster and sink in a little bit deeper. So if you need that extra support on the knee, pop the knee on the bolster and sink in a little bit lower. You can also, because the knee is supported, bend it, and that will increase the stretch through the front of the thigh. And if you find this is a bit kind of awkward to keep it lifted and you want to reach back and hold it, you can hold it. If you're like, God, there's no way I can reach back to the foot, let it float or bring it back down to the floor. And we're just going to sink into this position. I say sink because it can be quite uncomfortable. You can always come up onto the forearms can rest onto the thigh. Sorry, my brain feels a little bit slow. Apologies. I'm like, what is this? What are these? So we're trying to maintain a position where we can come into stillness and feel the opening and expansion through the body. Get to a place where you're like, yep, that's where I'm going to stay, and breathe into it. So remind yourself that your yin practice is not about creating comfort necessarily. We're exploring the sensations that may feel relatively intense. We're working with the body, and we're trying as best we can to not push ourselves too far. So if you find yourself going in too deep, back away a little bit, because you've still got about another minute here. Use your breath. Notice if the thoughts of worry kick in or if there's a relatively peaceful, calm sense moving throughout your body. Is your system stressed, or are you feeling relatively happy in this position, even if there's intensity? As we start to slowly guide the leg back, and I'll push out of this position slowly, we can walk back, bring the leg back over, and maybe sit back onto the heels for a moment if you want to, or come back to tabletop, wiggle around a little bit. Come back to the breathing and just feel into one side. Now our yin energy for this particular meridian, so working stomach and spleen, we're looking at kind of more of a grounding, earth-like energy. So more stillness is ideal. However, if we need to slightly shake the earth a little bit or move around, then we can do so. So remember that we don't have to be completely still statues in order to feel the benefit of this. If your body needs a little bit of movement, honour that. So we're going to come into the second side. Now remember, you don't have to do the same thing you did on one side as you did on the other. If you know that you need a little bit more support on one side or you have a tighter hip, take a slightly less intense variation. The right leg's coming over because we're stretching out into the left hip flexor. Now this is, for me, a little bit of a sorer side. So I'm going to take my knee to the floor rather than onto the bolster. And your right leg's coming into the centre, so your hands can either go onto the thigh, they can come down to the floor. It might not be comfortable, so we're not looking for comfort necessarily. We're looking for expanding into the parts of the body to get the energy, the chi, to move through the system where we might feel blockages. It's quite common with the stomach and spleen energy for stagnation. Now particularly, I mean, it's raining outside at the moment here. It's horrible. It's that time when you're like, I just want to stay inside and hibernate. I'm like, yeah, I just want to stay in and snuggle. And by 5 o'clock, I feel like it's dinner time and then bedtime because it's getting dark really early. So this is a really nice practice to do when you're feeling that stagnation or you're needing that little bit of hibernation, but you also want to allow your body to feel like it's moved stuff, moved energy, moved and worked into the muscles. And by stretching intensely, we can be releasing quite a lot of heat. So we don't always have to run the marathon to release energy, especially when we're feeling potentially either a little bit quieter in a particular day or maybe feeling a little bit under the weather. We might want to do less during the winter. This is absolutely normal, a normal way for us to function. Modern society kind of preaches that we have to just keep going continuously with the same energy that we have in the summer and the spring throughout the autumn and the winter. But if you follow circadian rhythms and you follow the light, you'll also be very aware that you're much more tired, generally speaking, during the winter months. So slowing down and nurturing the body throughout this time of the year is really important. And look, I almost talked us through the whole of this side, so we've only got a little bit less than a minute to go. Keep the breath moving smoothly as possible. Now, as we start to push the weight back slowly, take your time to ease out of these positions because you may have sunk in a lot deeper than you thought you could. And again, you can come back to tabletop, or you might want to stretch out in down dog, or just come into your hero's pose again and take a moment to pause. Now, we might want to roll our bolster all the way to the top of the mat. We're coming into Sphinx. So this can be a nice little bit of support. Don't worry if you don't need it or you don't want it. You can also just use your forearms. I like to have a little bit of comfort for my body. And we're going to use our blanket, rolled up towel or pillow, again, if wanted, if needed. You can also use fascia balls if you have fascia balls here, but it may feel a little bit intense for some of us. So I'm just going to roll up my blanket. And this is going to go into the tummy. Now, all of the energy lines, all of them, run up through the centre of the body. So by pressing the belly into something, we're working with pressure into all of our energy lines, not just the stomach and the spleen. Hopefully you know that the stomach is underneath the left rib cage. I'm sure you can feel that when you're kind of full and it kind of expands. So we're going to be working higher up, if possible, with the blanket rather than lower down into the more large intestine and small intestine region and into the lower pelvic space. However, if it doesn't work for you up here and you don't want the blanket up higher, just push it down lower and that's absolutely fine. So as we come into our Sphinx position, legs go back and we drop onto our blanket either around the belly button region or a little bit above. So it depends again on your anatomy. And then we can roll the bolster underneath the armpits or bring the forearms onto the bolster. So if you've got quite a flexible back, depends on the structure of your anatomy again, you may actually prefer to be pressed onto the bolster with the forearms, and it softens the elbows into the ground. Now again, we're here to feel into the stretch and into the sensation. Breathing deeply, so use the diaphragm here to push down into the blanket and into the internal organs. And we're just waiting for the stillness to occur and watching what we experience. Notice if you start any worrying or overthinking. One of the classic things when we're agitated as well or worried is noticing what time is it? How long have I got here? How long have I been here? You don't have to time manage this. I've got the time for you. But that actually might provoke quite a lot of stress. So notice if there is worry, apprehension, that kind of fear of the unknown. And see if we can, in a way, either just allow it to be here by nurturing what we're feeling, or softly guiding our attention somewhere that feels more supported and grounding. We might not be in the space today to want to have to really attend to some of the difficult feelings. We might actually need a little bit of that regulation, and it's not about avoiding them, but it's about going, not today. I just want to feel where I'm actually comfortable, or more comfortable, or more secure. And you can always titrate back. You can go back into that feeling of maybe worry or stress, and then come back to that feeling of perhaps pleasure or comfort, and go back and forward with your awareness. Keep breathing deeply. Last few moments here. Then softly, we're going to make our way all the way back up. So we can either push into the earth or the bolster, lift the hips up. You might want to have a bit of movement in the spine. You may want a little bit of a down dog. Or you may again just want to come back to hero's position and just allow the blood flow back into the abdomen. Take a few deeper breaths. And we're going to just slightly move, let's move the blanket off to the side. We don't need the blanket for, excuse me, for the moment. And we can widen the legs a little bit, and we're going to come into a wide leg child pose position, or you can come into a closed leg position. It's kind of up to you. I quite like to bring my belly through, which feels quite nice to relax the tummy. Now, depending on your flexibility and the way that your body is designed, you can either bring the bolster down and rest onto the bolster, which is a little bit more, I guess, supported and comfortable. You might want to bring more cushions in to give yourself more layers, and it's quite nice for the tummy to feel a little bit of pressure into this area with something soft and comfortable, rather than that kind of what we were doing before, which was pushing into this area where we were stretching it. We're now rounding it and taking it the other way. So coming into something more comfortable here. For the sake of the mic, I'm not going to use any props. Or you can simply allow your body to drop down into a child pose position without any props at all. Maybe just the hands supporting the head, or what feels appropriate for your body today in this moment. And let's see if we can invite complete stillness into the body. And let the ground really draw us down. So be absorbed by the earth. Give your worries away. For the next few minutes, all you need to do is be here, in this moment, breathing and letting the ground hold you. And when the worries might come in, or when the thoughts might start to arise, just kindly allow them to drift away. Think of it as like a conveyor belt. I can't remember that TV show. Was it the Generation Game? And they used to have to remember all the items on the conveyor belt. And then they closed, so they had to watch them all come along the conveyor belt. I can't remember what the show was called. And then they closed off the thing, and they had to recite everything they saw. So, not having to do that here. All the thoughts are like all those prizes on the conveyor belt. And we're just letting them pass. And we might remember one, we might want to grab one, but we can just pop it back on the conveyor belt and deal with it another time. What I do want you to focus on is the ground holding you, nourishing you. And the ability just to give your body willingly, without worry, without judgment, into the ground. Then we're going to very gently lift the body back up. Take your time. Slowly, slowly bring the body back up to the centre. And again, if you need some movement here, you might want to invite a little bit of movement into your body, or you may just want to come back to hero's pose. We're going to take our body into a puppy pose variation. So bringing the hips over the knees. And the intention here is to really expand the front of the body into the shoulders and the arms. But you can always use a bolster either under the chest and dropping down this way if you need the support, and the elbows can always come down. You can also take the bolster this way and roll it underneath the chest, so you've got the support here. Or if you want a little bit extra, you can bring it underneath the arms or the hands and drop the head down, so you're getting an extra stretch through the arms. Or you might not need the prop at all. Now, try and avoid your knees being kind of wobbly on the patella. We'd rather the hips were a little bit further behind the knees than over, just because it might feel a bit uncomfortable on your kneecaps after a certain amount of time. And if you do find puppy pose a little bit uncomfortable, then you can always come back to child pose at any moment. Now, you can also grab hold of your forearms and rest your forehead down to your forearms. But see if you can then stretch the elbows a little bit further away, so you're getting a nice opening underneath the armpits. And just let the kind of area, so the solar plexus region is probably getting a little bit of a stretch here, into the tummy. Try not to hug your tummy in. Let your tummy be soft. And if you can, avoid the chin coming down for this one. So just keep the forehead down, or maybe the nose pressing into the earth. And see what happens here. Notice what you feel. Maybe the heart starts to sink a little bit closer down to the earth. Maybe the spine begins to elongate a little bit more. See if you can embody a bit of stillness. And notice if the worry, the fear of that comes up, the thoughts start to invade your practice. Can we stay with the body and just experience the body in this moment without the mind constantly interrupting with, are we doing it right? What am I doing later? Or all the thoughts that come across that conveyor belt again. Now we're going to begin to come out of this pose steadily. So you may want to walk the elbows back in, even if you're on a prop. Slowly come back up onto the hands and the knees, and maybe move around a little bit in cat-cow, if required. Because we're going to make our way onto the sit bones. Swinging the body round. Excuse me. Now we're coming into supine Baddha Konasana, so we're going to lie down for this one. Hopefully I won't cough the whole way through it. Apologies if I do. Now, if you know that opening your knees out wide is quite intense for your hips, and it's not, when I say enjoyable, if you're feel like you're grasping in stress, pop your bolster underneath your knees or a couple of pillows. If you like the feeling of the hips opening, great. It's okay that it's intense here and it's okay that it's a stretch. We're not doing restorative yoga, remember, we're doing Yin Yoga. So there will be a sense of stretching and intensity here. But just make sure it's manageable. And where you have your feet positioned, if you have your heels closer towards your groin, you're going to feel a little bit more into the hips. And if you push it a little bit a little bit further away, you'll feel less into your groin, your hips, and more into your hamstrings a little bit. So you decide, you can play with where you want your feet positioned, depending on the intensity of the hips. And we're going to lie down. Now, if as you lie down, you find that your head is really extended and uncomfortable in your neck, you can pop a pillow underneath or a rolled up towel underneath the neck to let the head be supported. But try not to be in this position. So for me, if I have a pillow underneath my head here, it's kind of lifting the chin up and tucking me in towards the throat. I want you to have a little bit more space open in your throat and your chest. Hands can go anywhere they're comfortable. They want to be out to the sides, over the head. For some reason, I always want to bring mine back to my belly. It's just where I feel the most grounded. So go for the space that you feel grounded and come into that stillness again. Movement will happen. See if we can be with the intensity of the body. You don't have to close your eyes. You can keep the eyes open. And in fact, if you need or if you feel intensity in your body, keep your eyes open, because that will reduce the intensity that you're feeling and allow you to kind of sit with more of the discomfort. In yoga, we're often close your eyes, feel deeper. Sometimes we don't actually want to feel deeper, and sometimes it doesn't always serve us to feel into things super deeply. So the eyes opening is a great, again, regulating tool. So you're always welcome to keep the eyes open throughout your entire practice. Now the hips contain a lot of tension, so this might start all beginning to like away, or you might have a very opposite effect and it's like, oh my God, we're stretching, grip. So remember, if you're feeling that like tension and grip, give yourself a little bit of support so you can feel that, we're starting to release and let go. Our intention is not necessarily to increase our flexibility, but to see if we can soften what we're holding, to release into the ground what doesn't really need to be held onto for the moment, and nurture into the body, the physical form, which will connect into the emotional, mental, energetic form as well. We're all interconnected. Through all the different layers or sheaths of our being. Like an onion, when you slice through the entire onion, you slice through all of the layers to get to the center. So as we work deep into our muscles, our joints, we're not just working with the physical body, but we're working with all the energy as well, the emotions, the mind. We're just seeing what arises. We might not actually know what we're feeling. There's no like, you will feel this when you work into this part of your body. It's like, what do I feel? Be curious about your body and your experience. Now let's gently begin to either extend the legs away, or I like to close the knees by collecting the hands under the thighs and helping lift them up together, as it can be quite intense for the body with this quite deep hip opener. And then maybe give the legs a bit of a wiggle. You might want to come up to seated momentarily and give the legs a bit of a shake. Whatever feels quite nice to help release what we may have been feeling in the body. I'm just grabbing the clock because I can't see it. We might be here till Christmas otherwise. Which actually isn't that far away. And then we're going to come into supported bridge position. Now, bolsters are really nice for this one. So I like to have quite a lot of height. My back is quite flexible. If you are in the position where you're like, my back isn't that flexible, or I've hurt my back and I want to take less height, either take a pillow, or you can take a rolled up towel, or even just the blanket underneath the sacrum. So the easiest way to come in is to actually lie down first and lift the hips up and slide whatever it is we're using. I mean, you can use blocks or you can use books, but I'm a sucker for something a bit softer in my pelvis. And if you find it comfortable here to begin with, just land the feet into the floor and let the spine elongate a little bit. So we're grounding the sacrum. So remember that your lumbar spine, the big curvature of your lower back, wants to be free from the support. You've got your tailbone, and then you've got your sacrum, the flat part, just above, kind of where your glutes attach to. So really your butt is supported here by the bolster, rather than into your lower back, which is a very different stretch, very different feeling. And then if you feel this is quite nice and you're like, oh, I'd really like to lengthen my legs away, lengthen your legs away and maybe bring the arms up and over the head. Now this makes my belly exposed because of the jumper I'm wearing. I'm just going to cover my belly with a blanket for warmth. So keeping the stomach area warm. So if you need to do that, if your clothing kind of lifts up, create warmth in these areas. Create comfort and support. And then just allow your body to flop open. And if this feels like quite a vulnerable position for your body, take note of that. It's okay to feel vulnerable here, but if you do need to have a little bit more support, you can always draw your feet back in. You can always pull your knees into the chest for a moment. So we're going to be here for a little bit of time. And can we begin to just release into the ground? Breathing deeply into the belly. And observing what we're experiencing as it rises and falls. When thoughts come in, especially if they're those worry thoughts, and if we've picked it off that conveyor belt, just gently be like, okay, I'm just going to pop you back and let you drift away. See, I've now got in my mind, what was that game show? I'm putting that back on the conveyor belt. And you're probably shouting at me going, it was this. You can put that back on the conveyor belt as well. And come back to the body. Give everything a little bit of a rest. Let's begin to slowly slide the feet in, re-ground the soles of the feet to the earth. Lift the hips up gently, and you might just want to roll the bolster towards the heel so you can drop the back down into the floor. And take a little bit of time in constructive rest pose, so just feel like you can almost neutralize the spine. I'm going to come into our meditation part of the practice, so get comfy. Maybe rolling the bolster so it's now under the knees. If you do need a blanket or a pillow, this is purely for comfort. So you can maybe bring a pillow under the head here if you need an extra bit of support. Wrap yourself up cozy. I'm going to come up to seated, but you can stay lying down. If you do want to do the meditation seated, there is no problem coming into a seated position if that feels more appropriate for you. But I'm only staying upright so that you can hear the microphone a little bit better. So allowing yourself to settle into the position that feels the most comfortable for you. And let the ground really absorb your body weight. The earth that you are lying on will be able to support you for the next few minutes as we settle into a bit of a grounding, softening meditation, working with the energy of the spleen and the stomach. Have a bit of trust for the fact that you are going to be still and safe for a few minutes' time. Not long, but long enough to allow our nervous systems to really begin to relax, to restore. It's like we're plugging ourselves in to a charger, recharging our systems, especially when we're always running on low. So if you need to move the body to make yourself a little bit more comfortable, if you need to change anything that you've positioned yourself into, do that now. And then see if you can just drift into the stillness of your physical body. Maybe close down the eyes here and take a moment to rest. Start to welcome in that slow, steady breath. And feel the breath is almost like a nourishing wave, cleansing and clearing through our systems. Inviting in all that we might need to nourish us and releasing out what we don't need in this moment. Breathing in and breathing out. Then allowing yourself to visualize your most nurturing space for your body. It can be somewhere that you actually know, like your bed or your favorite chair, or it can be somewhere that you've made up completely. Allow this space to be incredibly comfortable in your mind's eye. And noticing if our invasive thoughts start to come in, if we overthink it or worry. And when worry might come in, we just acknowledge worry. And then we ask worry to come back at another time, because we want to focus on feeling more nourished, more rested. And this might happen over and over again. As we rest, the mind wants to think. So use that opportunity to let the mind think positively by focusing your attention to this wonderful, nurturing space you've created, and allow your mind to use this time to expand into that nurturing space, noticing the colours of that space, the fabrics that you've created that cover your body or support your body, the details of the nurturing space that you have created in your mind can be where you can focus your mind. And then it might start to settle again and you drift off a little bit. And if the mind then gets bored or wants to invade, give it a job. Noticing what this room or environment that you've created that's nourishing is like. Ask the mind to describe it to you in detail. I'm going to leave you in silence for a few minutes. If you drift off into a wonderful, peaceful rest, enjoy. If your mind is constantly coming back and forward, going into thinking or worrying, give it that job of describing that nurturing space to you and seeing it through the mind's eye. And know that I will awaken you in the next few minutes. Now coming back to your physical body that is grounded into the earth. You don't need to move your body yet, but just feel any areas that feel comfortable, secure. Any areas that actually feel warm, relaxed, rested. And just allow that rested, warm, comfortable feeling to expand outwards or around your body. Enjoy it for a few moments longer with conscious awareness. Maybe taking a few deeper breaths, or maybe even a yawn and a big sigh. We can start to then begin little bits of movement. So you might want to move the body slowly to break the stillness and just wiggle your way back into your physical form. Today we're going to close the practice with a little bit of singing. Now, singing or chanting, however you want to look at it, can be done in silence, can be done in the mind, can be done vocally with me. Listening is participating. So if you just want to listen, you can, and if you'd like to stay in Shavasana and just listen, you can do so. Or you can come up to seated and listen, or bop along, or sing along with me. Clearing my voice. So we are going to be singing a Ganesha, a grounding Ganesha little chant. You can close your eyes, you can keep your eyes open, you can dance around your room, however you want to express yourself here is always welcome. So we'll sing for a few minutes and then we'll close off our practice. So taking a few moments to still the body. Join in when you would like to. Ganesham, 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 Ganesha Om, Ganesha Om, Ganesha Om, Ganesha Om, Om, Ganesha 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 Om, Take a moment to allow the vibrations of the singing, either within or around you, to settle. And if we're lying down, we might want to make our way up to seated, slowly. As we'll close our practice together, let's sweep the arms up to the sky like a big yawn, a big stretch as the palms connect together. The hands can draw down to the heart center as we bow our head forward. Thanking ourselves for our practice today, for allowing the stagnant energy of the spleen and the stomach to move through us, grounding and nourish us from within. Namaste.